Hello, everyone, and welcome to our last week of regular season Garden Hour. My name is Amanda Bachman. I'll be your host tonight. I'm the Pesticide Education and Urban Entomology Field Specialist for SDSU Extension. And joining me tonight, I have three additional panelists. We have Laura Edwards, who is our state climatologist based in Aberdeen. Laura, what are you going to share with us this evening?
All right, I'm going to touch on the outlook for the next couple weeks in the fall season and share some new information on fall frost dates.
Awesome. Cannot wait to hear what the predictions look like for my garden. We also have Dr. Rhoda Burrows, who is joining us from the West River office. Rhoda, what is on the agenda for tonight?
We're going to talk about fruit tonight. I'm going to talk some about grapes and some other fruit.
Awesome. And we also have Dr. Kristine Lang, our Hort professor on campus in Brookings. Kristine, what are you sharing with us this evening?
It's a bit of a hodgepodge tonight, but I'm going to show a few more updates from the field, some cool photos, and then share some of my favorite fall cover crop resources.
Awesome. I have got a few insects for folks this week, and then I know we've got some events to talk about at the end and maybe some hints at an off-season garden hour. So for folks who are joining us from home, feel free to ask any questions for our panelists in the Q&A, which should be at the bottom of your screen or maybe in a slightly different location if you're on mobile. If you throw it in the Q&A, it makes it easier for me to track those questions and field them to our panelists when they're done with their segments. Keep an eye on the chat for information on how to contact us after Garden Hour. We'll still be around answering questions for the rest of the year. So if we miss you tonight or if something comes up post, August, feel free to drop us a line to one of the garden hotlines or through our Ask Extension widget. So with that, I will turn things over to Laura.
All right, thanks, Amanda. So I'm first up today, and before I share my slides, I wanted to say I will be at the State Fair just on Friday this week, and I'm going to share kind of a short version of that presentation here tonight with you, but there I'll also talk about the outlook and for fall, winter, and the frost information too. But I did want to share kind of my new favorite show and tell item that I got just a few weeks ago, and that's this gem here. It's kind of a big paperweight, but really it's a 3D printed model of South Dakota's largest hailstone that fell in July of 2010 right near Vivian, South Dakota, and it's also the U.S. national record. It's over 8 inches diameter and weighs almost 2 pounds, 1 pound, 15 ounces. So if you're at State Fair, I'll bring this for show and tell too, and you can heft it and handle it, and it's kind of fun. So I will bring that with me. I'll share my slides now so you can see a couple things, a couple pictures, okay? So first, I wish we could all just go around and everybody share pictures of their garden and all their bountiful harvest. And so I'm super proud of what I've gotten. Usually, sometimes it's kind of a mixed bag of what I get. This was the second tomato harvest. You see, I got some not so good looking tomatoes, but this is what I haven't even touched yet. I canned like 14 pints of tomatoes on Sunday and a bunch of beans frozen on Saturday. So we're having fun in the garden this year up here near Aberdeen, and I hope you guys are too. A lot of us up here in the Northeast have been fortunate to have a lot of good weather in good climate for productive gardens. So hopefully you guys are doing some good things too. So now back to the climate stuff. Temperature wise, I'm just looking at the last month. I think I last visited with you probably in June. July was a pretty busy month for me, but just looking at the last month or so, looking at temperatures as compared to average, and anything in the oranges, reds, yellow, orange, red are warmer than average. So you can see, you know, particularly in the far western side of the state, temperatures have been much warmer than average, you know, 3 to 5 degrees or more above average. That's really pretty significant. I know there was a handful of days of 100 degrees or more not too long ago. And in the east, a little bit of a different story there. The green dots are areas actually were cooler than average, so kind of a mixed bag there, not as consistent, and so that probably has been what's been good for some of the gardens there too, without these really hot extremes in last month. Another thing we're looking at this time of year is soil moisture. If you're not getting rain, your roots, your plants are relying on soil moisture, especially during, you know, this time of year where it's, you know, growing fruit and really needs a lot of water at this time of year. So looking at soil moisture, this is from our South Dakota Mesonet, our weather station network. Each one of these stacks, we call this the poker chip map. Each one of these stacks of chips is where we have a weather station located, and each layer of the soil down to 40 inches is represented by those little chips in each stack. So starting with 4 inches depth and going down to 40 inches. So if you go, I forgot to put the scale, the legend on here, but the darker blues are wetter. Then there's green, yellow, oranges are drier. So to give you some perspective there. The white colors show that there's no sensors actually at that station, or maybe there's a sensor that's broken or not reporting. So this was just today's soil moisture. So you can see in the eastern part of the state in general, we're seeing some wetter soils with the blues and a lot of greens, but a couple spots of yellow here and there, like Redfield, Spink County. This is Webster over here, up here Timber Lake, a little drier, and down south here, this is Rosebud. So we got a handful of areas that are coming in pretty dry. I'll show the precipitation map here next. Oh, maybe I don't have the precipitation map. Looking at precipitation, this north central part of the state really has been drying out quite a bit faster than some of the other areas. From July 15th to August 15th, they had something of very close to record dryness. So it's been very dry, especially in the north central part of the state. But I'll show the drought monitor here in a second. Just to show a little bit of the drought monitor before I get to drought monitor map. This is just showing over the last 4 weeks what areas of the state have gotten drier or wetter, as looking at drought anyway. So areas in yellow or orange have gotten worse in dryness or drought conditions, and the areas in green have improved. So we've had very local changes, you know, just little areas here and there that have improved or gotten worse over the last 4 weeks. So the drought monitor map doesn't update until Thursday each week, so I don't have, you know, this current map. I know the Pierre area got some pretty significant rain last week. Same in the Rapid City area and kind of some of the Plains area nearby there. So that hasn't been reflected yet in the drought monitor map. I'm thinking I maybe skipped that. I maybe hit that slide. So I'll just show the drought monitor map here. Here, let me get out of here for a second. Let's see, current map. Just to show you what the drought monitor looks like here today and or this week. So here's what we look like now for South Dakota and for our region here. We are still showing D3 extreme drought in that western, you know, kind of heart of the western side of the state, and also along the southeast area. You see kind of this little hole cut out of that. That was that string of rain a couple weeks ago that brought about 3 inches of rain, kind of right along the Nebraska border. So we are seeing some areas that are still holding on some severe drought issues there. All right, go back to my presentation. All right. So looking ahead at the forecast here. So the next 7 days, very quiet weather. We're going to see some increasing temperatures here this week. Thursday, I think, will be the warmest day. Thursday and then Friday also be kind of warm, but cooling off a little bit Saturday. But really, generally, very dry conditions along with that. Everything in white here literally is 0 precipitation in the next 7 days. Keep those gardens and lawns watered. I think if John Ball were on the call, he would say keep those trees watered because the September rainfall or irrigation is really important to allow those roots to survive and do well over the winter. 6 to 10 days outlook. So I just showed 7-day total precipitation. No big surprise, we're leaning on drier than average there in the 6 to 10 day period, which is the map on the right. Also along with that, the map on the left, very high likelihood of warmer than average temperatures. So this is September 5th through 9th, so around a week from now, more or less. So warm and dry is kind of the story as we look out at next week. Jumping out ahead there, that kind of second full week of September, September 7th to 13th. Again, much of the United States here in the lower 48 leaning towards above average temperatures for that week of September 7th to 13th. On the right-hand side, our chances of drier than average kind of wane away, and we get kind of closer in that gray area towards near normal probability, near normal chances of precipitation there in that same week. So, nothing really is consistent as far as showing what's going to be drier or near average for that week. Keep in mind, though, not only do we have probability of warm temperatures that week, but the same week, September 7th to 13th, this is the hazard outlook for that time period. Some elevated risk is some very high temperatures, and this is showing maybe something near record highs for that time of year. So we're looking at 40% likelihood of something in the top 10 percentile, like something very, very hot for this time of year. Right now, our average highs are about 80, average lows are upper 50s. So, thinking of, typically by mid-September, we should be seeing mid-70s as the highs, low to mid-50s as the lows. So, thinking of some very warm temperatures. I don't know the numbers exactly, but I could see like 90s, upper 80s, 90s, maybe warmer. So it looks like we're in for quite a streak of warmer than average temperatures. The September outlook for the month of September by itself will be updated tomorrow. So I didn't want to show that because it's a little bit stale news right now. But I would not be surprised if it mirrors very close. I'll show this 8 to 14 day. If it mirrors very close to something like this. They generally lean on the first couple weeks of the month where they have higher skill, higher confidence, especially with a very consistent temperature signal like what we see on the left. So that's something where I think I have pretty good odds of being right on that one. Our long-term trends in fall precipitation actually are increasing. We've had a number of wet falls over the last, couple decades. So sometimes it tends to be a little later though, like October, November. So September can sometimes be a wild card there. We'll see what they come up with tomorrow. Looking at the fall season overall, September through November, And this is a little bit older too. Oh shoot, I didn't get the right maps there either. They are also leaning towards kind of equal chances of temperatures being warmer, cooler, or near average. And let me pull that up too, because I thought I had grabbed the right graphic there. I'm kind of not having a great track record here, Amanda, today. Here, let me share this with you guys. All right, so this is September, October, November temperature here. Again, northern part of the state, equal chances of warmer, cooler or near average, with the central to southern leaning a little bit on the warmer side. Precipitation, very similar. I'll kind of squeeze these two together, where central and southern leaning a little bit on the drier side. So again, that's contrary to our long-term trend where we've actually been getting wetter in the fall season. So all that put together, I do not predict an early frost at this time. I think that's kind of the upshot of all of that. I'm getting a lot of questions, when is our frost going to happen? And I don't think we're going to get an early one at this point. But to share our latest data here, thanks to Brett Lang, who helped compile these maps for us. Here's the median date and of our first fall 32-degree frost day. So a median is if we took all the dates historically and we go in and find the middle. So about half the time it happens before, about half the time it happens after this date. Okay. So the median or 50th percentile date for 32 degrees is something here. So find out where you are on this map. The purples are in September-ish. The yellow is right around the turn to October, and then the greens are in October. So you can see there's quite a range. It's over a course of 4 or 5 weeks where we see frost occur, usually starting on the west, Black Hills and Northwest, and then kind of going with the later dates in the Southeast. Keep in mind too, again, our trend is towards a later frost date also. So this is data just from 1991 to 2020, the most recent 30-year period. So we have seen, even just recently, a couple years ago, fall frost in the Southeast. That was like Veterans Day, like mid-November. So there's a lot of variability in that frost date. Looking at the hard frost, what I call hard frost, 28 degrees or a killing frost. Again, this is the median date or kind of the middle date of that happening. Maybe about a week later than the 32-degree time, more or less, not always. So maybe a week or 10 days later than the 32-degree event. So that's maybe our best guess. It's hard to predict when a frost is going to happen. It's really just all the right ingredients on the right day at the right time. It's really more of a weather thing than a climate thing. But we still have a little bit of time yet. Again, with this very warm, couple weeks into September, I don't think we're going to see a particularly early frost at this point. So with that, sorry, Amanda, I kind of messed up my slides. I kind of did them last minute to grab the latest graphics, and then I kind of missed that. So I'm sorry, but hopefully you guys captured it.
Yep. No, we got over 3 inches of rain here in Pierre during that last rain event, which is like the most appreciable rainfall we'd had for a really long time. So that was definitely, I can see the improvement in the drought monitor there. That's why.
Oh yeah, your biggest event of 2022 by far.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah,
it was a lot. And it looks like we don't have any questions for you at the moment, but if folks do have questions for Laura, feel free to put those in the Q&A and we will catch her at one of the breaks, or she can type an answer to you. But for now, Laura is off the hook and we will move on to Rhoda.
Good evening, everyone. We will work on sharing our screen here. So one of the questions I've been seeing occasionally on some of the social media is, how do you know when a honeydew melon is ripe? It's not like a cantaloupe where the cantaloupe will slip, will separate from the vine very easily once it's ripe. Honeydew hangs on and you actually have to cut it off the vine. So a couple of things that we look for is the color change to white or yellow and away from a greenish. And the other thing that you can check on is opposite the stem end. So down here on the bottom, on the blossom end, is a little bit of a softening. So it gives just a little bit when you press on it. So those are two things that you can look for to determine when your honeydew is ripe. You'll find some sites on the internet will say that honeydew will ripen once it's off the vine, that you can put it in, say, with apples to create more ripening. Most honeydew do not do that, so you want to make sure that it's ripe before you pick it. Another question we got today, it was on Grape Phylloxera, and that's a little insect that creates these galls, makes a little home for itself, and has eggs. These little galls are just full of eggs, 100 to 300 eggs within those galls. And once they hatch, they crawl around and find a new place and create a new gall until it's time for winter, and then they survive its winter. It has a fertilized egg underneath the bark of the grape, and grapes have that sort of loose, shreddy bark, so it's easy for them to hide under there. How do you control it? Well, first of all, the first crawlers, when they're finding a new place to form a gall, happen about the time you've got 10 leaves on a shoot. Now, to get pretty much full photosynthesis, you need to have about 12 to 15 leaves on a shoot. Once you're beyond that, you don't need those extra leaves anyway. And so sometimes you'll get this happening fairly late, and all the new leaves are just full of galls, so that they don't even look like a leaf anymore. They're just curled up tightly. You don't have to worry about that. It's not hurting the plant. Those are kind of extra leaves anyway. Don't sweat it. If it's happening when there's 10 or less and it's a new vine and it just seems really bad, then we can talk about control. But it's very difficult to have control on these because of their cycling there. So if you think you need to have it controlled, Surround is one insecticide that's recommended, but you have to, it forms a coating on the leaf, and the little crawlers don't appreciate that. But you have to come back and keep spraying from the time of about 10 leaf until you've got, say, 14 or 15 leaves per shoot. So not a real long time to protect those new leaves. Grape Phloxera, you may remember, if you are familiar with the history of grapes in Europe, just about destroyed the grape industry in Europe. And that's because this insect, which is adapted to our varieties in America when it was made its way over to Europe, and those varieties had never seen the Phloxera before, and the Phloxera went in and destroyed the roots of those varieties. They saved the industry by getting material from America for rootstocks and took that over to Europe, and then had varieties put on these rootstocks that were resistant to the phylloxera. So enough about the problems. I want to talk a little bit about what kind of varieties that you might want to think about planting. Valiant is our South Dakota release. And if you want a good juice and jam variety and a variety that can take really short summers, Valiant is your choice. It's going to ripen in August, probably mid-August. So it avoids the frost problems that some of these longer varieties might have up in the hills or up north. So Valiant can also be made into wine. It's not the premium wine grape, but if you take it off the skins right away, it's not too bad. The other three here are some varieties that have been bred with cold hardy grapes, crossed between more European type grapes and our native grapes. Frontenac is half native grape. And Frontenac was one of the first to come out. It's Minnesota grape, used fairly widely in South Dakota for wine grape. It has a couple sports that are lighter colored. So we've got Frontenac Blanc and Frontenac Gris, which are just different lighter shades of this, but quite similar in terms of chemistry. Brianna is kind of my favorite grape. It's got these cute little, very compact clusters. It has kind of a pineapple flavor to it. It's kind of known as being a wild child in terms of how it grows. So it might take a little bit more effort in training if you like something that looks real disciplined. Whoa, speaking of discipline. And so it's pretty hardy for most of the state. Itasca is Minnesota's latest wine grape release. It has less of the acidity problems that Frontenac has, and so it's considered their premier wine grape right now. And it seems to be thoroughly hardy for our state. So that's another option. And there are description of these various varieties in this publication listed here. There are a number of other varieties as well, but these are four that you might want to look into. And then if you want a seedless grape variety, there's a number of older seedless ones, Mars, a couple others, but they're kind of iffy for us in terms of cold hardiness. Now, if we continue to warm up, maybe we can grow them. But the one that I know of that has been grown successfully, even in the northern part of the state, is Somerset seedless. Kind of small clusters. Nice fruity taste, sweet. So you might want to try that. Minnesota, in addition to breeding their wine grapes, are working on some seedless table grapes. And so right now we're going to have some of those planted out in trials in South Dakota. Dr. Fennell is working on that. And so keep tuned, and maybe in 4 or 5 years or so, those will be available. And we'll have a wide variety to grow here. The last thing I wanted to talk about today, this came in today, what is this plant? And Dr. Ball identified it as the buffalo currant, also sometimes known as clove currant. And there's a little bit of uncertainty about the actual genetics there. Sometimes it's considered Ribes odoratum. Sometimes it's considered a type of REM. So the classification is a little undecided there, but whatever you call it, it does have edible black fruit. And the birds have actually seeded this in my backyard. And I have not really harvested much of the fruit from it. It can be used for jams and that sort of thing. But I've noticed that lately the deer are finding it and come and like to strip the berries off and some of the leaves too. It does have a fairly nice fall color, this sort of dark red. So that's an option for your landscaping that you might want to consider. And with that, I will stop sharing and take any questions that there might be.
All right, you've got two about grapes. The first one, what causes grapes to be dry and crunch?
Well, the crunch has me a little bit puzzled there. If you're meaning the fruit turning crunchy, I always think of it more as raisiny, but black rot will shrivel the grapes and the grapes stay on the cluster. And so that's a disease that I think I've talked about earlier in the year. So that's one possibility. But if you can send me a picture or a little more information, maybe we can nail that down a little closer.
And the next question about grapes is, how do you propagate a grapevine?
Grapevines actually come very easily from hardwood cuttings. So you want to wait until they've gone through their cold conditioning time during the winter, so long about next February, March. You can cut cuttings that are 3 nodes long. Put the bottom node and make sure that you keep them so you know which direction was closer to the roots, and put that under the soil or the potting soil. You can use hormones, rooting hormones. Sometimes you don't need to. Grapes are fairly easy to root. They kind of like to have some warmth. So if you've got a warm spot like a radiator or one of those heating pads, that will help them root a little quicker. But just a reminder that if they are hybrid varieties, named hybrid varieties, almost all of those have legal ramifications for doing your own. So you certainly don't want to plant a whole vineyard with ones that you've done on your own, but for your backyard, you can probably not worry about it too much.
I'm sensing maybe a good topic for our off-season garden hour about some winter propagation. So
there you go.
We cleared the questions about grapes. So if folks have more questions for Rhoda or for Laura, feel free to put those in the Q&A, but we will move on to Kristine.
All right, and tell you what, Rhoda and I didn't plan this, but she set me up perfectly for one of my slides with her melon photos. So I greatly appreciate that. First off, thanks to anyone who's on tonight who came out to the trial garden tour last Thursday. It was an awesome evening of looking at plants, and a lot of time was spent trying to discern which ones were the favorite in the crowd. For those of you who are listening in and you're like, you know what, I'd love to come to McCrory Gardens and vote on my favorite plant, you have until the weekend of September 23rd to visit McCrory, and we've got signs up with QR codes that we are selecting or asking people to vote on their People's Choice Awards for in-ground annuals, as well as potted plants, as well as the perennial trials. So if you've got a chance to road trip out to McCrory, please do so. And again, the annuals are still in peak production. The containers are starting to go downhill. Some of you might be in similar situations. There are things in my own raised beds. My beautiful borage that I shared with you earlier this season, not so beautiful anymore, but I still haven't pruned it because there's a few flowers and Amanda told me not to for the insects that are out and about. So we're just kind of letting that die back slowly. And I am continuing to deadhead other annuals. You know, you can see here in the foreground of this photo, petunias, many of our new hybrid petunias are self-cleaning. So they're just dropping those petals. They're not going to seed and you're just having additional flushes of blooms after that. So, you know, with that warm weather continuing in the forecast, keep deadheading, keep things watered, and enjoy those flowers through September until that killing frost comes. So thanks, Laura, for some positive news in that front. We had a question last week about homemade floral preservative. I'm going to be honest with you, I didn't find a great, credible, trustworthy recipe. Therefore, I'm not going to recommend anything. Instead, I'm going to encourage you to visit our friends at North Carolina State University. And I get to say friends because Rhoda has a really good friend that helps lead a lot of that cut flower research. And there's a nice article kind of explaining how cut flower post-harvest trials are conducted and some of the different preservatives they test and some of the purposes they have. And again, when you get that packet of floral food with your grab and go bouquet at the grocery store, that is a balance of some sort of a sugar or carbohydrate source, since these plants aren't photosynthesizing anymore and can't support the blooms on their own with all of the foliage and leaves that we've already stripped off. There's some sort of a bioinhibitor or a biocide that is going to prevent or slow bacterial growth, because that's what causes that water to get muddy and yucky and smell super gross, like sweaty old feet. So you're trying to prevent that. And then there's usually some sort of an acidifier, and that's helping to prevent that stem from callousing at the base so that that water uptake can continue. So one thing I do want to say, dropping a couple of tabs of aspirin in the vase with your cut flower water, that's been proven not to work. That one is a myth. So we're going to debunk that, and we're going to take our free packets of floral preserve when we get them at the florist's shop, and know that when your florists are giving you bouquets, more often than not, any florist worth their weight in salt is putting floral food in there. And again, it's correctly balanced. So just follow the mixed directions if you want to make more for your own cut flower bouquets. And again, there are opportunities to buy bulk tubs of cut flower preservative at craft stores, things like that, that again, follow the directions and mix accordingly. And again, it's a great time of year to collect cut flowers. Our zinnias are beautiful. Lots of stems are in bloom. So whether it's wildflowers or plants from your garden or plants from your neighbor's garden, only do that with permission. It is a great time to make cut flower bouquets. So Rhoda, thank you for setting the stage perfectly on melons. I just very quickly, something from the field. This is an update that has progressed vertically and up and out. At the Beersford Farm in southeast South Dakota, we have a small high tunnel there, and we erected some cattle panel that are supported. They're wired to large sturdy T-posts. We've got about 8 feet of vertical in that thing, I'd say, and spaced every 2 feet in row. We transplanted out 4 different kinds of specialty melons with the premise of having them grow vertically. And you can see in the photo with Sugar Cube is a nice example. I should have circled it, but there is a small plastic clip. So we are using their tomato or cucurbit clips that were purchased from a farm supplier. We're using those clips to help those vines latch onto that cattle panel, and then the tendrils you can see in the photos are grabbing on as well. So many of those vines are growing well over 6-7 feet tall at this point. And we have, again, 4 different kinds of melons, 2 types of honeydew, one of which is snow leopards. So you saw that in one of the photos that Rhoda shared. And 2 different types of muskmelon or muskmelon-like specialty melons, one of which is Sugar Cube. I've shared this one because I really enjoy the taste of it so far. So we are collecting all of the harvest data in terms of number of marketable fruit. At the end of the season, we're going to take that entire plant biomass and somehow untangle it from the cattle panel and dry and weigh that so we can get a sense of for how big those plants truly got. So do watch for a research report later this fall or early next winter. And again, the goal was to find some melons that might be a good fit for growing vertically in high tunnels in South Dakota. And this was inspired by some research at Iowa State University by some of my colleagues. So if you want to see what they did and kind of get a better sense of what we're trying to accomplish down in Beersford, that would be a great place to start, and watch for an update from us later this fall or winter. I am starting to get questions about cover crops. I'm really glad that folks are thinking about this. As you're getting done with those gardens and you're pulling out those vegetable crops, or even if you're pulling out all of those annuals, you're done, you're over it, you're sick of flowers. There are some great cool season cropping options that you can add as cover crops to the home garden. Oats do really well, and the seed would sure be easy to come by in South Dakota. Especially for folks in rural communities, you might have a farmer neighbor or someone that might have some extra oat seed that they're willing to share with you that you could sow in your garden. Red clover and white clover are two cold tolerant clovers. Great thing about them is they have nitrogen fixing relationships with bacteria in the soil that kind of take up shop in their roots and can pull some of that atmospheric nitrogen and package it so it's usable by the plant. And when those clover roots die, or when you mow that clover down or till it into the soil, that releases that nitrogen and allows it to break down and become available again. Red clover will get taller in the garden, but again, we're looking at a fall cover crop. The goal is, to outcompete weeds, prevent erosion, have something growing early in the spring, which red clover and white clover would be able to do. Oats typically aren't going to overwinter here in South Dakota, so those would winter kill. So you won't have them as a weed issue next year. The red clover and white clover, the following season, you'd need to use a broad spectrum herbicide like Roundup and spray that out, and then allow for a wait period before planting your garden. Or you could terminate it with, a garden tiller or something like that. Another fun plant, if you have a really compacted garden, you might consider trying something like oilseed radish or one of the daikon or one of the tillage radishes. Here's an example of, what those radish roots look like. I have seen tillage radishes as large as my head. Again, for that tillage radish to really effectively, grow that taproot into the soil and break up that compacted soil, earlier planting is better. So if that's something you're interested in, you might consider sourcing seed yesterday and getting it planted this weekend. So again, sowing methods for small home gardens, it can be as simple as, raking up the soil. This was a clover planting after I pulled out squash in Iowa, and I sowed clover seed is really small. Typical rule for planting depth with cover crops is the larger the seed, the deeper you want to plant it. Clover is teeny tiny, so you want to get it like a 1/4 inch. So we scattered that. I just hand scattered it over the soil and raked it in so that you had better seed to soil contact. Something like oats, you might want to consider a slightly deeper tillage event. Or you could do no-till and kind of just gently rake it into the soil surface. But again, seed to soil contact is important. Or perhaps if you're someone who's mechanically inclined, maybe you want to rig up a little no-till drill for your home garden for your oat seed planting. I know there are a lot of clever folks out there who'd be able to do that much better than I can. If we're going to have the drier than expected fall, as Laura indicated, I would encourage you, if you're trying to get clovers established or oats, or get those tillage radishes going, put a home sprinkler on that garden, irrigate that soil, help that cover crop germinate quickly, get established so it has time to actually grow and photosynthesize and put down roots and cover that soil before we get those killing frost events. So you might be wondering, when on earth should I be planting cover crops in my county? I had shared this previously this summer, but this is still one of my favorite decision tools. And when people ask me about planting dates, I do refer to this. I ask, what county do you live in? So this data is calibrated based on, climate data across South Dakota, drilled down to the county level. And so if I look at South Dakota and Brookings, looking at the historical data and what research is available in the Midwest on cover crop establishment, this gives those general ranges for the best time to seed these cover crops. And you can see those windows start to close. And again, this is by way of example, this is Brookings, but those windows start to close for those cool season crops by the time we hit October. And again, you can see that yellow highlighting at the top. Again, it's risk of freeze or just not getting enough moisture to properly establish in time. And then if you want to dig really deep and learn all sorts of things about cover crops, there's a wonderful resource from SARE, and it is free. It's called Managing Cover Crops Profitably. Don't worry so much about the profitably, although if you have farmers in your life that you want to share this with, it's a great resource for them as well. But this has awesome curated research about all the different types of cover crops, including the ones I've mentioned tonight. And this is a free, it is a book if you want to sit on your couch and read it, or sit on your patio and sip some tea and read it, or it is a PDF that you can download for free as well. So that's a great information source for cover crops. And if you want to learn more about cover crops and see some things that are going well, maybe not so well, some different tillage and weed management methods for pepper and broccoli production, as well as see some of those cut flowers that I showed you at the beginning of the program, we would love to see you at the Specialty Crop Field Day on September 15th. Myself, Rhoda Burrows, and Amanda, we're all going to be on the program. We'll be doing field tours and having presentations. And by golly, the band is going to be practicing next door, so it's going to be really festive as well. So it'll be a great festive afternoon. And Laura, I just need you to promise that it's not going to rain for my event. So if you can do that, that would be great. Finally, if you're looking for something to do West River, we'd love to see you at Youth and Family Services Harvest Festival. You'll see many of the extension team, and my graduate student Alexis will also be out there with some free cover crop seeds and some cool plants to look at. So would love to see you there. And finally, I just want to give a big shout out. Of course, this is a photo where we're all squinting into the sun because that's how field work goes. But a lot of the things I showed you throughout the garden hour season, I wouldn't have been able to show you if it wasn't for my team, my graduate student, Alexis Barnes, who is on the far side of the photo, and my undergraduate employees, Jacob and Ellie, who this team just did an outstanding job amid derechos and equipment hangups and COVID and all sorts of goofy things this summer. Yeah, the photos I have today would not have been possible without them. So with that, I'll turn it over to Amanda and check in on questions.
Okay, we've got a question about the supported melons. How are the clips holding up for the vines? The plastic ones that they purchased cracked in early July. Do you have a source for your clips?
So I'll just share that I purchased mine on Johnny's. They seem to be working well. I know that a lot of different places sell those plastic clips. Again, lots of farm suppliers. Some are kind of a heavier duty plastic than others. The other thing to be aware of is there are some biodegradable clips, which are great because then you're not like dealing with tearing all of that apart, but I can't speak to how quickly they degrade. If you're reusing the plastic clips from year to year, I have found that they do crack pretty quickly in the sun. So that can be challenging.
Yeah, I'll say the South Dakota sun can be intense.
Yes, my face is an example of that.
And we've got a question that's sort of like a crossover between our two areas. They've got a lot of grasshoppers. Will cover crops help grasshopper eggs over winter?
Oh, Amanda, I'm going to recruit you to help me with that one. I will just, again, this is kind of an observation and something we're noticing in our field is we've had, with our kind of living mulch cover crop trials, we've had enough other fun things for the grasshoppers to eat that they haven't been feeding on our peppers as heavily. And my hypothesis, and Amanda, I'll just let you take it from here, is that that clover foliage has been a little more lush and more delicious than the peppers.
Yeah, and I'll say that grasshoppers can be really variable from year to year. So if you've got them, this year, that's not a guarantee that they're going to be a problem last year or a problem next year. There's a lot that goes into grasshopper survival over the winter. If we have like a damp spring, that can also cause a lot of mortality in the eggs. If you've got some good soil predators in there, those will also eat grasshopper eggs. So I would say the benefits of the cover crops outweigh any potential increase in grasshopper population. And, I had grasshoppers early season in town here in Pierre. They really didn't mess with my garden because I had a bunch of other stuff that I was fine with them munching on. So like, if your garden is the only thing green in an area, yes, you are going to have a grasshopper problem because they will preferentially eat the stuff that's green. If you can have some essentially trap crop of something that's lush and green, the grasshoppers, they are, pretty generalist and will often go, go into that. And then you can, do some management there. But also with grasshoppers, deal with them when they're little. By the time you get to this point in the season, you're not going to kill them with a chemical. It's not going to happen. But yeah, I am going to go ahead and share my screen here real quick. Just have hopefully I've got it right. You can see my red sunflower seed weevils and not like the full preview thing. But the insect that I kind of got the most questions about this week were the red sunflower seed weevils. And these are a little orangish red weevil, and they will be sort of hanging out in some large numbers if you've got sunflowers. It's not something that we sort of manage in home gardens. If you're growing sunflowers as an agricultural crop, this is definitely one of the insects that gets managed, but you'll notice that if you sort of poke them, they'll play dead. And they are sort of a later season critter. I really just noticed them in large numbers, starting out in like mid-August. So if you've got sunflowers, check your sunflower heads. You might have some weevils hanging out. And I also wanted to just remind people about fall arthropods. So our wasp from last week, as well as our isopods from a couple weeks ago. As things start to cool down, arthropods are going to start to look for places to spend the winter, especially the ones that do overwinter as adults, or just the ones that are sort of moving around as the temperatures cool down. Things like pill bugs, those isopods will, crawl into garages or crawl under doors, and then it tends to be dry inside, so they, dry out quickly and die because they do need a lot of moisture to survive. So now is the time of year to be checking the weather stripping on your doors, checking screens, checking windows, and making some of those small repairs, because a lot of times these insects are just sort of finding a way in and they can't find their way out. We do have things like the multicolored Asian lady beetle that overwinter as adults and will sometimes come into, soffits, attics, crawl spaces. And again, really the best defense there is the good offense of making sure that you've got, cracks and crevices sealed up. I will also say my annual rant against hedge balls, that you may see hedge balls in your local grocery store, and those have been debunked. They're essentially the fruit of the Osage orange tree. They're these little green balls. And the claim is that if you put them around, it will repel spiders and other insects. One, you kind of want spiders because they're going to eat the other insects. And two, insects are really just going to walk right by that hedge ball. Unless you build like a wall with them, they're not going to be keeping other insects out. So save your money, do the home repairs, check out the weather stripping on your doors, and then anything that makes it in and dies, just sweep it up. These are not things that are going to be feeding or reproducing indoors. And then some upcoming events, like Laura and Kristine said, we are going to be at the State Fair. I'll be there on Thursday and Friday. The Hort building is going to have master gardeners and resources and talks in it all weekend. So check out their Facebook page and their schedule and stop by and see them. I will also be at Insect Fest in Brookings on September 10th at McCrory Gardens. So that's going to be a great family event, free day at McCrory Gardens. Great time to come check out the trial gardens. I'm hoping that I'll have a chance to kind of sneak away and take a look at some of those pretty annuals and see what I should be planting in my garden for next year. And I just wanted to thank our panelists and all of our attendees for a great season. It was so awesome to have so many people join us every week this summer, and we had so much fun that we are going to do an off-season garden hour. So keep an eye out for registration information about that. We're looking at October, December, February, and April before we start up the 2023 season in May. And I'm going to take a quick look here and see if we've got any other questions. Doesn't look like we do. I will ask our panelists for closing thoughts before we sign off this evening. I will echo what Laura said, definitely water your trees. If John was here, I know he would be saying that as well, especially if we've got a late frost. Trees are still going to be using water up until the ground freezes. But Laura, any final thoughts for this evening?
You know, just a note on those fall frost maps that I shared earlier, they will be posted on the Mesonet website, or you can go to climate.sdstate.edu. There's a section for climatologists, that's me, and those maps will be posted there I think tomorrow. We also have the spring dates on there. You can look at 24 degrees, 30, you know, a bunch of different temperatures. And so, yeah, I hope to see some of you on Friday at the fair.
Awesome. Rhoda, parting thoughts for our regular season of Garden Hour.
I'll echo what you've already said about continuing to water. For things like tomatoes and grapes, if you're like about a week away from harvest, you can actually pause the watering because that will increase the sugars in the fruit. But once your grapes are picked, don't neglect them. Again, they can use water to go through the winter, especially if we have a dry winter. We've seen if vines go into the winter very dry, they can get a lot more winter damage. So keep babying them.
Awesome. And Kristine, thoughts for the season?
I think just continue to enjoy harvesting, whether it's those bouquets or those flowers or that produce. And, you know, there's those general questions of how do we stay up to date on upcoming events? Is there going to be Bachelor Gardener class next year? Where do I find all these awesome research reports that Kristine promised she's going to write over the next couple of months? All of those things are going to be in the Garden and Yard newsletter. So continue to watch that. We're going to be around. We're going to have other events that we're planning this winter and pop-up activities. So if you want to stay tuned to what's going on and have some fall and winter reading, I do encourage you to please subscribe to our Garden and Yard newsletter and stay in touch with us. Also, like the SDSU Extension Facebook page because they promote our work as well. So thanks everyone. It's been a really fun summer.
Yeah, I'm excited about, you know, we've got September to do State Fair and some other events that we have going on, and I'm looking forward to the topics that we come up with for our off-season garden hour. So thank you again to all of the attendees that joined us, and also to all the folks that have watched the recordings on YouTube. If you missed any of our weeks or just want to catch up on something, you can always check out the playlist there and see past episodes of Garden Hour. And thank you to our panelists for showing up at 7 p.m. on Tuesdays and hanging out with us and sharing your knowledge. It's been a great season, and we'll hopefully see you soon. Happy gardening, everybody.